Hi guys, Rotary Swing instructor Clay Ballard here, and this week we're going to do a web.com winner, mostly because I just love this golf swing. Trevor Immelman, in my personal opinion, has the best golf swing to just sit back and watch. It's powerful, he produces a lot of speed, he's perfectly on plane, his body motions are so very efficient. He doesn't have any wasted motion whatsoever in his swing. And we're going to go over some of the keys to doing this today and talk about why his swing looks so good. So let's go ahead and get started with one of my favorite players, Trevor Immelman. Now the first thing I want to talk about is swing plane. And the backswing doesn't really hit the golf ball for you. The downswing is what's going to hit the golf ball. We have to perform the moves in the downswing correctly. The backswing just helps us to get into position to be able to perform those moves. But if you have a really nice backswing, man, it just makes it look really, really pretty. And Trevor Immelman has, in my opinion, the best backswing on tour. Now the first thing you'll notice, and this is a big difference between what I see most of the time, most people overhinge this right wrist right off the bat. So that right wrist, you can see that's flat as a pancake there. And I want you to watch his club head and watch the hosel of the club. So let's go back to address. I have the hosel on this line. Watch how perfectly it traces that line all the way back. I mean, he doesn't get a centimeter off that line all the way up into the top. And then as his arms start to raise a little bit more, he still stays perfectly parallel to this. This would be called a parallel plane backswing. But that is really, really good. As far as aesthetically pleasing, that's about as good as it gets. And the key to this, one of the keys to this, is keeping that right wrist nice and flat. And most people that I watch on a regular basis that struggle with this, they're getting some cup in this right wrist. So their right wrist is bent this way, and that's going to suck that club head back in behind their body. And the reason is that's just an easy move to make. So if you start bending your right wrist, that club's going to go to the inside, and you're not going to have a perfectly on plane backswing. So the next thing I want to talk about is, as he goes to the top, the key for most really good players is trying not to get stuck. We don't want to hit those blocks to the right. We don't want to hit those thin shots that shoot off, 20, 30 yards to the right. And the key to this is getting your hands and arms to work back in front of your shirt buttons. That means that your hands and arms aren't going behind your body. So when we look at him halfway down, one thing you'll notice is that his hands and arms, they're tracking right here in front of his shirt seam. So his hands and arms are working back in front of his body. Now, two keys to this. One is he didn't get his arms really far behind his body to start out with. So we can see here's his right shoulder, and with this iron, the butt end of the club is just barely outside this right line. So his arms are over his right shoulder. We're going to talk about how at impact they need to be in front of his chest as we look at the face on a little bit later. But here we can see that he doesn't get his hands and arms way outside his right shoulder, and that's eliminating the chance for him to get stuck in the downswing. He has less room to make up to get his hands and arms back in front of his torso. Now the second key to this, and something that's really important for good golfers out there and all golfers alike, is that this right elbow needs to go in front of your body to start the downswing. That needs to start working the arms back in front of the torso as soon as you start down so that you do not get stuck. So we can see here the very first move he makes, the right elbow is working in front of his right shirt seam. So we can see here halfway down, this right elbow is well in front of the seam on his shirt here, and that's going to help him to get his arms more in front of his torso, as I just mentioned, and keep him from getting stuck and hitting blocks. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this from face on. Let's pay particular attention to this right elbow and what I mean by working the arms more in front of the chest. Here's Trevor from face on, and let's go ahead and pick up where we left off. Let's go ahead and go in the downswing in the position where his right elbow is in front of his right hip, or his hands are just below waist high. So from this position, it looks as though, if we're just looking at this from face on, it looks as though this right elbow is really jammed into his side. Now we saw from down the line that it was actually 4 or 5 inches in front of his shirt seam, and there was some separation between this right elbow and his body. So this isn't touching his body, although it appears that it is from the face-on view. Now from here, this is a very good position where he is not stuck at all. So his hands and arms, or his hands and arms are in front of his shirt buttons and in front of his torso. This is a great loaded position with this right arm. We go through this with almost every PGA Tour player that I do analysis on. I talk about loading this right arm, getting that leverage built up so he can release it. But the best thing that he does here, and to help him from getting stuck, is that he has his arms working back in front of his chest, and he does this by getting that right elbow in front of the torso. If his right elbow was behind the torso, his hands would be back here somewhere, his chest would be out racing it, and he would be at risk of getting stuck. Now from here, fantastic release. Trevor does a great job of having just amazing extension through the ball. So we can see great extension straight with the right arm. Left arm is still straight. The forearms are rolling over each other in the roll release. Just a fantastic position. I can't tell you enough good things about this swing. Now, the one small thing that I would have him work on is he has a very low launch angle. So his launch angle is about 6.5 degrees. And that just comes from having a little too much forward shaft lean. So instead of releasing this club soon enough, he kind of pulls the club through impact a little bit, gets these hands a little too far forward with the driver. So here we can see he's 4 or 5 degrees leaning forward with this, maybe even a little bit more, and that's hurting his launch angle. So anytime that you get this much forward shaft lean with the driver, you're going to be hitting down into that ball a little bit too much. You're going to be getting a little bit too much spin. So his average launch angle is around 6.5 degrees. I think the PGA Tour average is somewhere around 12 if I remember correctly. His average spin rate is about 3,500, where the average PGA Tour player is going to be 2,500. So he's launching it a little too low, getting too much spin. That could be part of the reason that he's struggling, but you never know. When you get to this good of a level and everybody is a really good player, it could be a multitude of things. They're just throwing him barely off over the last couple years, but I'm glad to see that he's winning on the web.com now. One of the best mechanics in the game, and just has a ton of great moves. Hits the ball really, really solid. So if you're joining me on YouTube, I want you to watch a video called the Wide, Narrow, Wide. It's going to go over the takeaway, how we can get this nice extended position here, making a nice wide takeaway. It's going to go over in the downswing, how we're going to shift to the left and get these hands working in front of our body, this right elbow working in front of our body, and creating lag in the downswing, getting this nice angle that you see here. And it's also going to go over how we can release this to get the proper motion of the release, get some good speed and some good compression on the golf ball. And that's all going to be covered in the Wide, Narrow, Wide video. It's making a half swing so that you can understand exactly how to incorporate this into your swing right away without making it as difficult as going full speed. I want to go ahead and show you the first part of this video absolutely for free. Then you can click the link on the bottom right hand side of your screen to be able to watch that entire video when you sign up for your free membership. So how would you like to have the same swing shape as every PGA Tour golfer in the world? I know what a lot of you are thinking right now. That's not even possible. There's a lot of guys that swing flat and around their body. There's other guys that swing more upright. There's all kinds of variations in swing shapes on the PGA Tour. And that is true, but there is one swing shape that'll be common for every professional golfer, and that's wide, narrow, wide. Now what I mean by this is in the takeaway and backswing, you're gonna make a nice wide swing arc. Then you're going to narrow that swing arc in the downswing by creating lag, and then wide in the release as you get rid of lag and create some clubhead speed. It's the only way to create tour caliber clubhead speeds and still be very consistent. So if you want to learn the wide, narrow, wide swing shape, I'm going to show it to you in 3 simple steps. All right, so first let's talk about whether or not you're already doing this move correctly. Now the opposite of wide, narrow, wide, the PGA Tour swing shape would be narrow, wide, narrow. And that's going to be the high handicapper swing shape. When you're doing this, instead of having that nice wide swing arc going back, you're bending the right arm early and you're picking the club up with your right wrist. This is creating a very steep angle on the way back, a very narrow arc. Now from here, the tendency is going to be to cast. Now the reason for this is I'm picking up this right arm and I get this right arm really, really loaded and by my side here. It's narrow. It feels like I want to throw with this right arm from right off the top, right off the bat. So I'm going to cast as I come down, and that's great if I want a lot of clubhead speed back here, but if I want a lot of clubhead speed at the ball, I need to keep that angle. So if you go narrow, your tendency is going to be to throw from the top, cast the club, and then as you're coming through, you're going to go narrow again and get that chicken wing position. So you're going narrow, wide and then narrow in the follow through, which kills club head speed at the most crucial part, and that's impact. So let's go over these 3 steps in order so that you can perfect them in your own swing. Okay, so move number 1 is wide, and that's basically just going to be a takeaway for this drill. We're going to start out with about a half swing. It's called a 9 to 3 drill, so it means we're going to 9 o'clock with our left arm on the way back. We're going to 3 o'clock on the way through. And the reason we're going to do this is it's going to allow you to go slower, to be able to see all your positions, and then once you can perfect this half swing, it's going to be really easy to take it a little farther back and swing a little farther through and incorporate this into a full swing. So let's start out with a 9 to 3 drill. So step 1, as I mentioned, is wide. We already know why this is a good thing. The wider I go on the way back, as a rule of thumb, the more lag I can create on the downswing. So if I'm going narrow, I'm going to cast. If I go wide, I'm going to create lag. So the first key to this is to keep the right arm straight. If we keep this right arm straight all the way to the end of the takeaway, or when the club's parallel to the ground here, I'm going to have to create a very wide arc. So you can see that now I'm forced to turn my shoulders, which is a good thing. I'm forced to do a lot of other things that are great we're not going to talk about yet here in this video. We're not going to talk about, but I'm making a very wide arc because my right arm is staying straight. Now the second piece to this is I want to make sure that I get a little bit of weight shift. Now we don't want to create a wide swing arc by shifting our entire body. So this would be overdoing it. This would be too wide. You know, there is a point where you can go too wide in the backswing. So we want to make sure that our weight only goes to the inside of my right foot. So if I go to the inside of my right foot, you can see that I'm remaining centered as I'm rotating. So my spine isn't moving all over the place as I'm going back and through. That would be the weight on the inside of my foot. So those are the 2 checkpoints I want you to do for step number 1. Straight right arm, weight to the inside. If you're shifting to the right with your body, you're going too far. So let's go ahead and go over step 2 now. All right, so now we're ready for step 2, and that's going to be getting narrow or creating lag in the downswing. So to start step 2, let me go back to the end of step 1. I've shifted the weight to the inside of my right foot. My right arm is dead straight. To start move 2, I'm first going to shift my weight to the left. So this is just going to be lateral for this drill. You're going to get a little bit of rotation in the hips, so don't really worry about too much of that. You're just thinking about shifting the weight from the inside of your right foot to the center, or the center of your ankle on your left foot. So it's going to start out by looking like this, and you'll also notice as I'm doing this, I'm starting to let this club hinge a little bit. So here's step 1. We're going to check this position, go in slow motion, make sure you're in the right spot. Then you're going to start move 2 by shifting the weight to the left and beginning to let these wrists hinge, or to wrist to cock, just like in the down cock drill we talk about on the site. So we're just going to look like this in step 1. We're going to go to step 2, and that's the first piece. We're going to shift our weight. The second piece I want you to check is when you're left. Now it's time to take action. Don't let another year pass and still be frustrated with your golf game. This is your year to beat all of your friends. Go to the description below and click the link to sign up for your free membership. It will never cost you a dime, and you'll receive over 2.5 hours of detailed, eye-opening video lessons. Plus, you will be able to see the remainder of this video, only available if you click the link on this particular video. Be the first of your friends to join our 40,000 plus free members. We look forward to having you on our team.